Good evening. The country tonight is in the midst of what may be the most serious constitutional crisis in its history. The president has fired the special Watergate prosecutor, Archibald Cox.
Before we move forward, we need to go backward, because moments like this do not exist in isolation. History matters here. On an October night in 1973, during the height of the Watergate scandal, the United States faced what later became known as the Saturday Night Massacre. A president ordered the firing of a special prosecutor. Senior officials refused, resigned, or were dismissed. The system held not because it was invincible, but because individuals inside it chose accountability over obedience. That lesson has echoed quietly for decades, waiting for another moment when the weight of the Constitution would once again fall on individual choice. And now, that moment has arrived. Before continuing, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because what is unfolding right now is one of the most consequential constitutional developments in modern American history, and every detail matters. At 3:17 p.m. Eastern Time on January 10, 2026, a single decision inside a federal courtroom in Washington, D.C. altered the trajectory of the nation. A sitting federal judge concluded that the judicial branch had exhausted its authority. She determined that normal enforcement mechanisms had failed, and for the first time in nearly 2.5 centuries of American constitutional history, she formally referred criminal conduct by a former president directly to Congress and demanded immediate impeachment proceedings. This had never happened before. Not during Watergate, not during Iran-Contra, not during previous impeachment crises. Never had a federal judge taken the extraordinary step of declaring that congressional action was no longer optional, but necessary to preserve the constitutional order itself. The referral was not speculative. It was not political commentary. It was not based on anonymous sources or media leaks. It was a detailed, publicly filed legal document stretching across dozens of pages, outlining repeated violations of court orders, obstruction of justice, witness interference, and direct defiance of judicial authority. The judge concluded that continued tolerance would undermine the rule of law itself. For months, the court had attempted to enforce compliance through traditional means. Warnings were issued, sanctions were imposed, contempt findings were entered. Each time, the violations continued. Court orders were ignored. Restrictions were challenged openly. The authority of the judiciary was tested repeatedly, not once or twice, but in a sustained pattern that the court found impossible to ignore. Federal courts are not designed to engage in power struggles. Their legitimacy rests on compliance. When orders are treated as optional, the system begins to fracture. The judge overseeing this case reached the conclusion that further inaction would weaken not just one courtroom, but the integrity of the judiciary as a whole. That realization triggered escalation beyond the bench. The criminal referral transmitted a full evidentiary record to Congress. It documented repeated violations, detailed timelines, and outlined conduct that the court deemed a clear threat to the administration of justice. The language used was precise, deliberate, and severe. The judge concluded that congressional intervention was required immediately. Within hours, the political system responded. Behind the scenes, impeachment articles had already existed in draft form for months. They were not public. They were not scheduled. They remained dormant due to lack of political consensus. That changed almost instantly. As lawmakers reviewed the judicial referral and the supporting evidence, support surged. Congressional accountability and criminal accountability are now operating on parallel tracks. One does not pause for the other. That convergence alone places this moment in unprecedented territory. Quietly, discussions that were once considered unthinkable have entered serious consideration. Contingency planning has expanded beyond traditional legislative outcomes. The existence of these discussions underscores how seriously the situation is being taken by those inside the system. Politically, the impact has been immediate and destabilizing. Party unity has fractured. Lines that once held firm are now visibly cracking. Lawmakers are recalculating not just political risk, but constitutional obligation. Once defections begin, they tend to accelerate. Momentum compounds. What was unthinkable 1 week ago becomes inevitable the next. Internationally, the consequences are already rippling outward. Allies are watching closely. Adversaries are analyzing instability. The image of the United States navigating an internal constitutional crisis has implications far beyond its borders. Markets react to uncertainty. Diplomatic confidence erodes when governance appears fragile. Domestic turmoil does not remain domestic for long. For ordinary Americans, the effects are tangible. Economic uncertainty grows. Trust in institutions is tested. Safety concerns become real rather than abstract. The machinery of democracy, usually slow and procedural, is now moving under extraordinary pressure, and the human cost of that pressure is felt in daily life. What happens next will define political accountability for a generation. What happens next will echo far beyond Washington. Regardless of how Congress votes, the precedent has already been set. A federal judge has demonstrated that judicial authority does not end where political power begins. That single act reshapes the balance between branches, reinforcing the principle that no individual exists outside the reach of the law, no matter how powerful or popular they may be. This moment also forces lawmakers into a rare position where delay itself becomes a decision. Choosing not to act now carries consequences just as real as acting. Every hour that passes without resolution deepens public uncertainty and tests public trust. The system was designed to move deliberately, but it was also designed to respond when the foundations are under threat. This is one of those moments. For the judiciary, the stakes are existential. Courts rely on compliance, not force. When orders are ignored without consequence, the authority of every judge in every courtroom is weakened. By escalating the matter to Congress, the court has drawn a clear line, signaling that unchecked defiance cannot be normalized. The outcome will determine whether that line holds or erodes. For Congress, the decision is not merely political, it is institutional. Members are being asked to decide whether constitutional accountability still has meaning when applied to the most powerful figures in the country. Future presidents, future courts, and future lawmakers will all look back to this moment as a reference point for how far the system is willing to go to defend itself. Public reaction will shape the aftermath as much as the vote itself. Confidence in democratic processes is fragile, and moments like this can either reinforce belief in the rule of law or deepen cynicism about power and privilege. How leaders communicate, how institutions behave, and how transparently facts are presented will influence whether the public sees accountability or chaos. The international implications cannot be ignored. Allies assess stability. Adversaries assess weakness. A constitutional crisis unfolding in real time sends signals far beyond U.S. borders. The credibility of American governance, long a cornerstone of its global influence, is being weighed by observers around the world. No matter the outcome, there is no return to the political landscape that existed before this moment. The boundaries of acceptable conduct have been tested. The limits of institutional patience have been reached. What follows will either reaffirm the resilience of constitutional governance or expose vulnerabilities that demand reckoning. This is history unfolding not in textbooks, but in real time. The next 72 hours will not simply decide a vote. They will define how power is constrained, how accountability is enforced. If you want to stay informed as this unfolds, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. The next few days will shape American history, and we will continue to break it all down as it happens.